What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Work and Play Podcast, live edition. I'm starting to like these things, getting into the flow. So, good morning for those of you guys who are joining from Instagram, from Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. First of all, I'm getting excited about these multiple different transformation transitions. You know what I'm trying to say. Because first of all, like I get a chance to have a conversation with most of you guys wherever you are. So thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting. And by the way, thank you guys so much for subscribing to the Work and Play podcast. I currently have about 980 subscribers. At the beginning of this year, I set a goal that I would have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. And I've done as much, almost everything that I can, except ask you specifically to subscribe to the Work and Play podcast. So you can do that by going to YouTube, clicking subscribe on the channel. You can also go to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast, whether it's Spotify or Google Podcasts, all these podcast platforms, and just subscribe. And the last thing I could ask you to do is rate it, because the more that I give you guys content that is actually applicable to your journey, the better off we can have better conversations that are more fitting for your journey. So thank y'all for joining me today. I know that similar to why we're having this conversation, you may be tuning in for this specific reason. Because at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, many of us need just a little bit of motivation in order to get our day started, especially if you're on your way to work right now. So if you're anything like me, this conversation is going to be applicable to you, because I know good and well my journey of like leaving corporate America and going into entrepreneurship started with me finding motivation. So like if you're like going, so if you're an entrepreneur right now and you're watching this on the replay or in the chat, I need you to put in I am an entrepreneur, right? And if you're in corporate America, I need you to say I am in corporate America. There's a difference here, and I want you guys to recognize the difference based on where you are. So when I left corporate America, I was about 3 years in, and I started to find so many other entrepreneurs who were just like me. And one similarity that I realized was that existed among a lot of us is that we kind of had the same journey in terms of recognizing our limiting beliefs and recognizing what we were truly capable of. What I mean is, when I realized that, maybe corporate life isn't, I'm not cut out for corporate life. Maybe there's another life that's better for me. Maybe I'm better suited to do something different. I started to just research. Many of us will start to straight up go to Google. And when I went to Google, I found so many people who had taken the journey, but they hadn't necessarily told me how to do it, how they actually did it, what steps did they take to maintain their financial freedom. So after you do all that researching, your algorithm starts to be affected by the searches that you actually do. So I'm starting to receive motivation that's geared towards leaving your job, that's geared towards counting on yourself. And I'm starting to see that there's the Jim Rohns of the world, Les Brown, The Rock. At one point, I even downloaded The Rock's alarm clock because I was having such a hard time getting out of bed and going to work that I wasn't even doing well at my job. So at this time, I wasn't even thinking about quitting. I was just thinking about surviving. So I was listening to The Rock as my alarm clock so that I can get my day started and move forward. And it worked for a short period of time. But I always found that, after a couple of weeks of listening to The Rock, I had to find Jim Rohn. After a couple of weeks of listening to Jim Rohn, I had to stick on Les Brown. After Les Brown, it was Lisa Nichols. After Lisa Nichols, the list goes on and on and on and on. And if you are anything like me, then these motivational videos, they do something to you in the morning, they get you pumped up. I was in a relationship at the time when the first couple of months that I left my job, and we used to listen to like Les Brown and get up in the morning and say, let's get the day, let's win the day. It was like the most, exhilarating experience because we got the energy that we needed to get the day started. But then every single time that energy started to wane off, we had to find some new motivation to change up our schedule. I'm in corporate America and admire entrepreneurs. So here's the thing. Remember when I said there are two different sides? So I need you to drop it in the chat. If you're an entrepreneur, drop it in the chat. If you are a corporate professional, drop it in the chat. There are some people in entrepreneurship who admire corporate professionals. Because the thing about it is there's no right or wrong in this journey. There's about the journey is about finding your fit, right? But the reason that we resort to motivation is because we're trying to do some things that we are still yet to believe that is possible for us. So we go to motivation and we say, okay, I can do this. You leave a YouTube video and you say, okay, I can do this. And perhaps you take action immediately. Now, if you're smart, you will listen to motivation while you're taking action. Because if you think that you're going to take this video and then it's going to like extrapolate into your brand new life, that's not what happens, contrary to what the clickbaity titles actually mean. Watch this video and it'll change your life. That is actually not necessarily true, but I won't debunk it 100% because obviously motivational videos is what's got me here. So I wanted to talk about motivation on this podcast today because that's honestly and truly what many people will say got them here. But I think there are some truths that we have to get very clear about because we're putting a lot of weight on motivation and motivational videos. Listen, I live in Atlanta and I realize we have learned to monetize motivation. We've learned to monetize inspiration. I think that's a great thing because if you get your daily dose of motivation and that's what gets you to take action, so be it. If that's what gets you through the life, who am I to tell you not to? As long as you can do something that keeps you consistent for a sustainable period of time and not something that wings off. So I wanted to have this conversation about motivation because I think a lot of people are discrediting the real power of watching motivational videos. So we haven't even gotten to the discussion, but I just want you to know that if you're you're in this room for the right reason. You're trying to tap into yourself. You're trying to figure out, how do I get my day started? How do I take action? How do I stop being afraid of just putting one step in front of the other and just taking action? And sometimes the phrase just do it just isn't enough. We're looking for something that's a little bit deeper than a Nike slogan to get ourselves out of our funk and change your entire life. What I'm trying to say is the one thing that, you know what, I'm not even going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. I want to get into the 3 truths that I want to share with you today about motivation. I was having a conversation with my community, and honestly and truly, it's not just the community the community of pioneers, it's a lot of people. We have this tendency to own these terms about ourselves, and we place positive things externally. Have you ever heard yourself say, I am not a morning person? Or I am not a thinker like that, or I am not the type of person who goes on stage and I sell myself. I'm not the type of person who can go to a networking event and meet new people. When you say these things about yourself, you are owning it. And no matter how many motivational videos you listen to, you're actually undoing the work that you are out to create progress in, and you don't even realize it. That's because we externalize so many things. This happens like with YouTube videos, but it also happens with religion. It happens with inspiration when we look at these influencers and we say, oh my God, they're capable of doing so many great things. But we don't internalize those things to say, hey, I'm capable of doing the same great and wonderful things that I see these other people doing out in the open. So drop it in the chat if you've ever said to yourself one of these self-degradating words and you had to say, oh, wait a minute, that's not true. I was driving one day and I said, I was late or something like that. I think I was late, or I might have taken the wrong turn. Who knows? And I said to myself, this always happens to me. And immediately I said, oh, no, 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 no. We are not going to claim that because this doesn't always happen to me. And I'm not going to affirm that so that I continue to bring that truth to myself. So when we look at the motivational videos, the first thing that we actually discredit is the fact that motivation or your actual will to take action is actually inside of you. And it's not something that's outside of you. So the fallacy of thinking, okay, if I listen to this video, something good is going to happen, or if I listen to this video, I'll be ready to take action. That's actually the reverse way. You might be dealing. So let's talk about, so those negative thoughts are something that we have to overcome, and we use motivation and affirmations to kind of sink into our subconscious. But you have to be able to own those words as your truth. Because unless you own those words as your truth, you'll always resort to the next person's words in order for you to think positively about yourself. So the first fallacy is that motivational videos, motivational people, and inspiration, they are not the people, they're not the ones that really make us think good about ourselves. It's really ourselves and us believing the truth inside of us. The second thing is, listen, and I'm guilty of it myself, but kicking the can down the street, have y'all ever heard the term kicking the can down the street? Because when you're kicking the can down the street, you're thinking to yourself, listen, I have this great and wonderful thing that I need to get done today, but I don't feel like it right now. Does that sound familiar? Type in the chat, what word is that you resonate with? If it's like, I know that I got to do this thing, but I just don't feel like it. Or I'm not quite sure what's going to happen if I take action right now. What word resonates with you when I say that? It starts with a P. Don't worry, I'm going to give it to you. It's procrastination. Many of us use motivation in order to get through procrastination. You're laying down in the bed, you're trying to figure out, how do I get the energy to do the thing? All I need is a motivational video to get me up and going. And so we think motivational videos is what's going to get us to take action. But really and truly, taking action is what makes you motivated on the inside, because you see the fruits of your labor on the outside. Am I making sense? Yes, procrastinating. Thank you, David. It's procrastinating, because when we think that, I don't feel like doing it, or I'm not going to do it right now, we resort to these external things, and we hope that motivational videos and inspirational people can get us out of our funk and help us take action. Well, it typically doesn't work that way. I will tell you, when I started this podcast, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no clue how to start a podcast. I got an idea of the structure that I needed to have. I pulled the trigger and I went for it. And ever since the first episode, I have been tweaking and tweaking and tweaking ever since. Many of you guys may have seen the growth that I've experienced in just 50 episodes, but can you imagine where this podcast is going to be when I hit 200 episodes? We resort to procrastination because we're thinking that if I get this motivation, if I get some inspiration, I'll be able to get myself out of this funk. Shoot, if you're the king of procrastination, I could sometimes be the queen of procrastination. I know it too well. For some reason, we're telling ourselves, listen, I'll feel like it later, or I'll do it tomorrow, and tomorrow never comes. Out of all the things that you guys have seen me actually accomplish, there's so many other things that I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get to it. The thing about it is, when I got to episode 50 and the momentum of the podcast was going so hard, there came a time where I was more exhilarated to keep up the pace than I was motivated, or I felt like actually recording another podcast. So what I'm trying to tell you is momentum is much, much stronger than motivation. And if you rely on motivation to be successful, the hard truth is that's not going to last. It's not going to stay for a long period of time. The momentum that you gain from just taking action time after time after time, it also builds your confidence. Thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate you 100%. You lit too. But the momentum that grows from just taking action is one of those things that literally you can't even stop it if you try. So I want you to try it. I want you to do this. I want you to take an action, write it down. What is something that you've been procrastinating on? Write down the action. And here's your self-accountability. This is a self-accountability because you don't have me to call you or bug you in the chat and say, hey, did you do it? So I need you to write it down. What's the activity that you know you're procrastinating on? And then I want you to write down when, like, set yourself a deadline. I'm a person that's really, really big on deadlines. Set yourself a deadline to take action. But here's the thing. Set the deadline based on the fact that you will continue that action over and over and over and over again consistently until, let's say, next year. If you can't see yourself completing this task over and over and over and over again, don't commit to it until you're ready to continue down the journey. Now, I said that, but if you don't know, you don't necessarily believe, take my belief that you can do it. If you don't believe that you can stay consistent, know that I'm telling you, simply by taking action and putting one foot in front of the other every single day, you are going to get the motivation from the inside that you've been looking for on the outside. The last thing that I want to say about motivation is it takes a lot of accountability, self-accountability, in order to motivate yourself. I know exactly what it feels like to be down on myself, to be the worst critic on the inside, and literally be the person that sabotages my own success. When we externalize motivation, we discredit the power that we have inside of ourselves to make things happen. And we also give in to imposter syndrome because we don't believe that we should be here in the first place. So the thing that overpowers motivation a lot of times, it's your own negative thoughts that are telling you that you can't do it. And the problem is you believe it. You would rather believe someone externally telling you that you can do it, someone externally who has done it, and believe that you can do it because they've done it, when really and truly, all you need to do is create proof inside of yourself that you're capable. Because with capability increases confidence. I know I said this already, but competence and consistency, I'll add another C, breeds confidence. So the accountability that's required when you listen to motivation is lacking sometimes in our industry. Because if I take you back to the journey, when I speak to some entrepreneurs, we've all found our way here because we've listened to the Les Browns of the world, right? And the Jim Rohns of the world. But we realized that somewhere along the way, action kind of slipped to the wayside. Taking action was no longer the priority. It was constantly listening to these motivational videos, spewing out motivation to other people, and not taking action. And that combination is a very dangerous cocktail for like not taking action and going into depression. Because now you create this dissonance in yourself. In one lane, you're talking motivation because you're getting that from somewhere else. But on the other side, you're not taking action. You're just speaking motivation. And so you start to think, well, this dissonance happens. I'm talking about it, but I'm not doing it. And your brain recognizes that. So you spiral into this negative thought pattern that says, hey, I'm not really truth. I'm being an imposter syndrome. I feel fake, right? And you start telling yourself that you feel fake now because you don't feel like you align with the motivation that you're listening to every single day. That's the danger of relying on motivation and not taking action. So what I would suggest is you take action. And as soon as you take action, you listen to your favorite motivational speech. Because you've already done it. You're celebrating yourself because you've already done the thing that you knew that you could do, but you were somehow telling yourself that you could do it. So couple your action with motivation to make it more sustainable in the long term. Once you start celebrating yourself, the motivation comes from inside of you, and now other people are looking at you because you're the one taking action. And they want to know, how did you do it? How did you do some of these things that I really want to do? That's how you get to find true motivation, true inspiration, not temporary. So if there's anything that you guys got from this episode, I hope that it's about taking action. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't know what action to take. Once you listen to a motivational video, you feel like, okay, I'm pumped up, but what do I do? And that's why I created the 12 steps to plan your exit strategy. See, here's the thing. When you're talking about doing something big or changing your life, you have to fill in this gap between where you are and where you want to be with small baby steps so that you can track your progression along the way. So outside of your exit strategy, outside of a full coaching program, there's one small thing that you can do without even signing up with me, which is taking action and signing up for this exit strategy guide that I created that will let you take action and break free from your current situation. So all you have to do is send me a text message. You can text me right now and we can have a conversation that's more reinforcing to the motivation that you can get inside of yourself, as opposed to reaching out to someone on YouTube that you don't even know, right? That can't talk back to you and getting the motivation that's going to last for a short period of time. So if you want to get this free resource to take action, you're like, okay, so how do I fill in this gap between where I want to be and where I am right now? You can text the word or the phrase break free to 678-833-80835. That's 678-833-0835. And we can literally have a conversation right now. All you have to do is send me a text, break free, and we'll have a whole conversation about how do you actually do it. But most importantly, I'm going to send you my free resource so that you can actually take action. Now, after you've taken action, I want you to go and find your favorite motivational speaker, and I want you to reinforce the action that you're taking with someone in your own voice after a while, okay? We're going to take action. We are no longer about taking external motivation and just relying on that thing and making ourselves feel good because we got that short dopamine hit. We're going to take action, and then we're going to couple that with celebrating ourselves so that we can replicate that action over and over and over and over again. And when you do, you'll look back and you'll see all the progress that you made that you were once afraid of or that you were once procrastinating to do. Wouldn't that be dope? Like, honestly and truly, when I look back at the person that I was, I know, whew, she's changed. But when I look forward and I say, oh, who's the woman that I'm going to become? I'm most excited about that because I built the confidence through just repetitious activity. And now I know what some of the things that I'm capable of. Because trust me, your future self is capable of so many more things than you've accomplished right now. So right now, if you're still trying to figure out what do you have to be motivated by? How do I motivate myself? I need you to write down 3 things that you've accomplished in the last 5 years of your life. And then I want you to get very, very clear that you did it. Not anyone else, you. No one else lived your life except you. So externalizing the motivation that you know you need is the last thing that you need to do right now. Take it, own it. Just like when we're in those interviews and we take on those, like when we're in an interview and we say, hey, I earned the company $12 million. I helped the team. This is the time where you take ownership of what you've accomplished. Okay. So if you have not already, go ahead and send me that text. Let's have a conversation. Let's start this journey together. Taking action is what's going to build your motivation and not vice versa. All right. Now, honestly and truly, I love to have these conversations. So we're going to be here every single Friday, every single Monday and Friday with a new episode of the Work and Play podcast. So if you haven't already, go ahead to the YouTube channel or to your favorite podcast platform, subscribe, and you'll be notified every time there's a new episode. I really, really enjoy having these conversations. I love seeing y'all on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. It's amazing. So if I can do anything else to help y'all, please let me know. I'm always available. So drop me a DM. But until next time, just take action. I'll see you on in the next episode. Peace.